Hi, and welcome to your Inside Power. I am your host, Patricia Stepler, and today our topic is about believing in yourself, believing in who you are so that you can move ahead in life. I want you to listen to this quote. It says, most people waste time on small stuff, never tap into their inner powers. We dwell on things that are trivial, and then we never really look at the things that are important, or we think that we don't need to worry about how we're responding. We just react to things, and we live very much in this world through our senses, and we waste a lot of time being afraid or feeling like we might fail in a situation. And I wanted to start today's show with telling you this story about a guy named Bunker Bean. Now, this story happens to be from a book that's no longer in print, but you can still get it. It's called How to Personally Profit from the Laws of Success by Sterling W. Steele. And in this, when he's talking about believing, he's telling the story about Bunker Bean. Bunker Bean was an orphan, and his parents died when he was very young. And so he grew up with very little. And he never thought much about himself. He never thought he was good enough. He was afraid of everything. It says here he was afraid of the future. He was afraid of situations, afraid of things, afraid of life, and even afraid of himself. That's a horrible way to live your life. But one day he met a spiritual medium, and this medium told him that in a previous life he had been the great Napoleon Bonaparte. And so that shift in his thought made him think that he was a king. And he started to act like a king. And he read as much as he could about Napoleon. He had pictures of Napoleon hanging up all over the place. And he believed himself to be this king in a previous life. And he had all this courage. And so he started to develop success principles, and he started to accumulate wealth and had, the finer things that he wanted in life. Now, all he did was really change his thinking. And then one day he found out that everything he had been told, that that medium was a fake, and everything that he had been told was not true. But here's what he says. But in those years when he believed himself to be a king, he had formed the habits that go with success. And habits are not easily broken. We'll talk about that in a minute. It was now natural for him to do the things that great men did. So, because he had changed his thoughts and he started to develop new habits, success habits, and as it says, habits are not easy to break. And one of the things, he had a great discovery of learning that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So he thought himself to be like a king and have the courage of a king and success. He became that. Bunker Bean had become wealthy while he had lived this myth of imagining himself to be great. He'd gained wealth, power, and prestige by believing in himself. By believing in himself. The world would always be at his feet if he could only believe. And it says here, every man is born to riches. To believe is what matters. That's what I want you to start to do. I want you to start to believe in yourself and believe that you are here for a purpose. And that purpose, maybe you haven't quite discovered it yet, but you have a greater purpose in life. And all you have to do is to start believing in yourself and believing in what it is that you want to be, to do, to have. And then you can start to acquire those things with belief and faith that they will happen. Leave nothing to chance. It's got to be done in a systematic way. And when you do that, it becomes not a matter of if it will happen, but a matter of when it will happen, because that's the laws. So think about what it is that you want. Dwell on it. Don't just think about it once and dismiss it. You've got to pretend in your mind that you are that person. That's what Bunker Bean did. Nothing had changed for him until he changed how he thought about himself. So once you begin to pretend that you are somebody that you're not, as he did, things start to happen. He started to see himself differently. He was no longer this poor little orphan boy who didn't have anything. No, he had been a king. And there was a certain prestige in that and a certain courage. And he developed different habits. Now, as I said, habits are tough to break. They can also be tough to form because in our mind, we have all these habitual thought patterns and habitual habits that we do. Some are very helpful to us, some are not. And so we have to figure out which habits serve us well and which habits do not serve us well. And then we have to start to figure out, okay, if a habit that we have is not helping us, what do we need to change so that we can replace that poor habit with what we do want? And then you have to start building on it. And it really takes 30 days or more to change that habit. Some people say like 21 days. It's really a little bit more than that. But once we start to change that habit, we're starting to build a new habit and doing one that does serve us well. So in the meantime, we have to act as if we're already there. That's what Bunker Bean did. He acted like a king. And that changed the level of vibration he was on. So he no longer thought of himself as not very good, afraid of everything, can't do this, can't do that. He started to think of himself as somebody who could do. After all, Napoleon had conquered all of Europe at one time. So he was a conqueror. He was a great king. And he shifted how he thought about himself. Well, once you shift how you're thinking, then everything around you begins to shift because now your energy is vibrating at a different level, much higher level. And so because of that shift, different things will start to happen to you. Different beliefs are there. So we have to become that person first before it will happen in our reality. And because we have to become that person first, sometimes we become discouraged because we're thinking, oh, well, I'm doing all this and nothing seems to be changing. It is changing. Sometimes we don't realize it. But here's where most people miss it. When I'm talking about dwelling on the small stuff, I was working with somebody the other day and I've been working with them for a while and they keep telling me the same stories over and over again. And I was like, stop, just stop. Because they were pulling my energy down. And I'm thinking, why do you keep talking about what's in the past? You cannot change the past. You can only move forward. And so we have to stop thinking about the past. We have to think about what it is that we do want and start moving forward in that way. Become the person you want to be. And when you start acting like that, then it will happen. So do not question it, just believe it to be true. Don't allow the worry and doubt and fear and disbelief to slip in there, because once you do, you lose ground. You have to go on with that belief that this is exactly what's going to happen. And believe, just like Bunker Bean did, everybody is born to greatness. Now, one of my other favorite books, The Science of Getting Rich, talks about this very thing. What you have to do is impress the idea into this formless substances around us at all times. And then we begin to form different habits because we're going to have different experiences now that we believe. And when you impress this upon the substance, remember, it has to be done in a coherent idea. And here's where a lot of people miss that. They don't have clarity. It has to be so clear what it is you want to do, where it is you're going, what it is you want to have, who it is you want to become. It has to be so clear that you don't get different things than what you want. And that's the other problem. People switch their ideas. It's like, well, this is what I want, but oh no, now I really don't think I can get there. So then they change it to something else. Oh no, I don't think I can get that either. And then they change it. Get something, get the clarity, get the belief that you can do it, and start to form new habits, success habits. If you want to have a great article, let me know. I have a great article on the common denominators of success. And in that article, it says that successful people do what unsuccessful people will not. They call them failures, will not do. And why do they do them? It's not because they want to do those different things. It's that they want the result. It's all about results and what results you want. But inside our habitual thought patterns, we have these ideas that will fight us every time we start to move forward. And I'm sure that's probably what happened to Bunker Bean. You know, before he believed himself to be a king, he maybe tried something, but was so afraid, he just stopped. And what we have to do is understand that those paradigms are going to control us because they're trying to keep us safe. They don't want us to step out and do something and fail. But you're never going to get anywhere unless you take a step. You'll stay where you are unless you take a step forward and try something new and different. Belief is what matters. Now, it says here, all you need to know is what you want and to want it so badly that it will stay with your thoughts. See, it's not enough to think about it once or even once a day. It's got to be constantly there. Every time you get that thought, it's constantly there. When you get it so ingrained, and what happens is you start to develop that belief because first you thought, that's kind of like a dream, something I'd wish for. But when you start to dwell upon it, you start to believe and you develop that belief, and then you start to develop the desire to have it. And it doesn't become just an idea, it becomes something you must have. And when that happens, then ideas will come to you. The people, the resources you need will come to you every single time. But belief is what matters. It must be belief, not mere hope or wish, as Napoleon Hill says. Has to be belief. And that belief will bring the success. So I want you to start to think big, get that idea, not something small and insignificant, something really big that you want. Start dwelling upon it, start living like you've already got it. So we're going to think big, we're going to live like we're big, and then it will come to us and we'll develop what we need to acquire whatever it is you want to do, you want to have, you want to be. So belief is what really matters. I can't stress that enough. Live as the person you want to be. And keep in mind, you can never outperform the image you hold of yourself. So to live a bigger life, you're going to have to change your self-image. And that's what I help my clients do all the time is how can we get to that point where we actually believe that we can do the things we want to do? Knowing and understanding these laws is one thing. Developing them and having the habit is another thing. So just understanding and knowing this is not enough. You have to work at it and to sort of force yourself to develop the habit, just like Bunker Bean did, develop new habits to be successful. So consciously we can understand it, but just because we consciously understand it doesn't mean we're actually going to do it. And that's that knowing doing gap. You can know how to do something. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. Two entirely different things. And we have to make a decision and be determined to follow through. And that's, again, another place where people fall down. They don't follow through with what they want to do. And so that decision, making a decision, this is what's going to happen, burning the bridges, there is no going back. And you have to have that commitment, that determination that you are going to accomplish this and you're going to work at it and to figure it out. Obstacles are going to come up. It's almost like a little test. I say they're like little angels out there testing whether you are committed or not. And so here's the difference. When you're committed to doing something, you figure it out. I know I had a test today and I was thinking, now, how can I get around this obstacle that I have? First, I just complained about it, but that did me no good. And it was like, okay, how can I work around this? And so once I figured out how to work around it, then I was able to accomplish the next step. So even though I complained about it first, I didn't dwell on that complaining. I moved around and tried to figure it out. And I'm trying to work with solving the issue instead of allowing it to be a complaint, like the person I worked with the other day. I'm not going to complain about. So obstacles will get in your way. You can be sure of that. The path to success is never straight, never. It's always this crooked path, but you have to develop the potential that you have inside of you. You're going to have to learn to go the extra mile. You're going to have to learn to do more than other people will, or what is like the minimum requirement. And here's the thing, when you shoot for the stars, maybe you won't hit the stars, but the moon's before the stars, and that's a pretty good landing place. And so, go after what you really want. You may not quite make it, but you're going to end up in a pretty good place, far better than the place you are now. So it's worth every single effort to keep going after what it is you want. One of the things I wanted to point out in this story of Bunker Bean was that he studied Napoleon. We need to study successful people. We need to see what others are doing. We probably need to hire a coach, because that coach is going to keep us focused and will keep us centered on what it is we need to do. And then we need to make improvements in ourselves. What things are we not currently doing that we need to do in order to accomplish that goal? What parts of our personality aren't working? The other day I was thinking of something and I thought, well, why did this happen here and this happen here and this happen here? And I thought, what's the common denominator? Me. The common denominator was me. So that meant that I had caused that. Sometimes that's hard to face, but we need to. What do I need to change? What do you need to change about your personality in order to accomplish your goal? What leadership skills do you need to develop to accomplish your goal? What skills do you need in order to speak with people? All these different ideas that we need to maybe boost our ambition, get inspired, overcome our fears. And all starts with making a decision. So I want you to listen to some of this from Wallace D. Wattles. And he says that these ideas, and the ones I'm talking to you about, and the ones that I work to follow, he said, these are for people that desire something greater in life, whether it's wealth, whether it's better health, whether it's spiritual relationships, whether it's, people relationships, whatever it is. But it has to be strong enough, and you have to be willing to overcome the mental laziness and the love of ease. This is not for the faint of heart. But that's why 5% of the people really succeed and 95% never do, because they're not willing to overcome the mental laziness and the love of ease. Make it clear. And behind every clear vision, he says there must be a purpose to realize it, to bring it into tangible results. Because that's what we're after, the tangible result. It says, whatever things ye ask for in prayer. Believe that you will receive them, and you shall. And of course, that's a quote from Jesus in the Bible. See things as you want. See through your mind, not your eyes, because what's in front of you is not what you want. That's the current reality. What you want is something bigger. So you have to start seeing through your mind. See the car that you want as you're driving. See your house the way you want it to be. See, maybe it's a different house. See yourself living in that house. See yourself with the clothes that you want to wear, the jewelry that you want. See yourself with them. And seeing that is with your imagination. Then he talks about being grateful. He says, be as thankful for it all the time as you expect it will be when it's taken form. So it goes back to gratitude. And a lot of times people think, you'll hear, write down 10 things you're grateful for. But what Wallace D. Wallace is saying here is that when you're as grateful for something you don't have, but something that you want, and you can express gratitude for something that you do not have yet, that's part of the belief, and that's part of expectation that you know it's coming. And he says, the man who can sincerely thank God for the things which he has yet to own, and owns them only in his imagination, has real faith. He will get rich. He will cause the creation of whatsoever he wants. So isn't that a beautiful thing? You don't just be thankful and grateful for what you have, but be thankful and grateful for the good that's about to come to you. He says, you're part of this intelligent formula is the desire of the things for a larger scale of life. Now, he says earlier, it's not enough to want riches or to want to travel or to want a new home. He says, everybody wants that. But you have to be specific. You have to have clarity of thought, clarity of exactly what it is that you want. He says, by holding this vision, that clear vision, with unshakable purpose to obtain it, and with steadfast faith that you will attain it. And that's what you need. That's the steps. He says, pray without ceasing. And by prayer, meaning holding steadily in your vision with a purpose to cause its creation into solid form, and the faith that you're doing so. Believe that you will receive it. So it has to be that conviction, and you can't waver from it. You have to be so convinced in your mind and believe that's it. Because here's the thing, it's there. What you want is already out there. It's a matter of you going after and getting it. And that starts with belief. So think and speak of all the things that you've asked for in terms of actual present ownership, not I will get this or I will have that, but I have, I am. So speak of it in present ownership. Imagine an environment and a financial condition exactly as you want them, and live all the time in that imaginary environment and financial condition. Now, Napoleon Hill talked about imagination as the most marvelous, miraculous thing in the world, because you can form that idea in imagination. I think it was in last week's episode, I talked about how we first imagine something and then we form it. And a musician comes up with a tune first and then writes the tune. It starts here. It doesn't start like just playing at the piano. The idea starts up here. It might get bigger and form more as they're playing, but it starts as an idea. An artist doesn't all of a sudden just start painting and whatever comes out of their hand, that's what they have. They form an image of what it is they want to paint. And then put that on the canvas. So we have to think of it first and then become it. This is what I do with my coaching program. And if you happen to be a coach or a consultant or a small business owner, this is what I do for you. I help you to build that image. I help you to hone in exactly what it is you want, because a lot of times we don't really know what we want. We have these vague ideas, but we don't form it. And I know I talked to a lady last night, and when I talked to her a week ago, she had this vague image and she had changed it and it had grown so much bigger. And so it's like something we can really work with now. And that's what we have to do. We have to start forming that image of what it is that we want, get such clarity to it so that we can start to think and believe and go through all those other steps. But that's what I work with my clients to do. And then sometimes we have to work individually, because different businesses have different ways to go about acquiring those things. So, but we have to start with the fundamental of the mindset first, because it all starts in your mind. And if we're thinking in vague ideas, it's never going to happen. It has to be clarity of vision. And we start with shifting our mindset, shifting our personalities, shifting who we need to become, becoming that person, changing our confidence. And that it all goes hand in hand. Your goal is way up here. You're not that person. So how do we get you to become that confident person to move up higher? You have to do that first before it's going to happen. If you want to have a big business, you have to start seeing yourself with a big business. And who do you have to become in order to run that business? So it all goes to the confidence. So they all work hand in hand. And you really need to have that down so that the marketing and the tools that you use and everything else falls in place for you. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please reach out to me. You can find me on social media. You can message me, Patricia Stepler, and let's find a way to help you to become the person that you want to be, and to expand the ideas that you have, and to create the life of freedom that you want for you and your family.